Welcome to Warriors at Work. This is Jeannie Coomber, your guide and host. Warriors at Work is a place where everyone in the workplace can come together, gain insight, encouragement, tell stories, connect, and share wisdom. We are a place of like-minded people at different stages of life, all coming together with a shared interest of enlightening and inspiring one another. If you're interested in going from the predictable to the potent, and you want to find your warrior magic, step into the journey with us. Welcome to Warriors at Work. Welcome, everybody. This is Jeannie Coomber. So we are in the middle of an extraordinary time. Many of us are faced with feelings of anxiety and fear and uncertainty, and it's having a tremendous effect on ourselves, our way of being, our way of living, and it is also affecting our children. And I have with me Rose LaPiere, who is a well-known voice in the world of anxiety, and I'd like to share a little bit about her and a little bit about what we're going to talk about today, and then get into a conversation that will help you to regulate yourself in this time of uncertainty. So Rose works with families and children and is grounded in therapeutic powers of play, neuroscience, attachment theory, mindfulness, contextual family therapy, and cognitive behavioral therapy. She has a BA in psychology as well as an MA degree in counseling psychology and is a certified school psychologist. She is also certified in synergetic play therapy and is the president for the division of the New Jersey Association for Creativity and Counseling. She also happens to be a lovely person, locally based here in Monmouth County, and I've had some amazing interactions with her. And just given I was being surrounded by, everything that I was hearing from clients, friends, family, I thought this conversation was really timely. So Rose, thank you so much for being in this conversation today.
Thank you. I really appreciate you putting this together for the community, just being able to help any way I can, just to offer some strategies for families and children.
Yeah, and the way that Rose and I have put a plan here together is obviously she's going to share a lot of her wisdom on the types of calls that she's been receiving, both from parents and the work she's doing with children. But we're also going to be talking about different resources and things that you can access yourself, being that we're all at home, to help, again, keep yourself regulated and calm and centered. And then we will just get into a conversation that will hopefully be really, really good use of everyone's time and things that everybody can take away some great ideas. So first, Rose, let's take a step back. Why did you choose this particular line of work?
Well, I have been working with children and families for about 20 years. So I think my whole life has been drawn to helping people, and my work has evolved over time to where I specialize in the play therapy and some of the things that you mentioned and working with trauma. And I just feel like there's so much connection to the people I work with, and seeing families really heal and helping, just provide them some guidance, taking them on a different path. It's been very, rewarding for myself.
Wow. Well, we're very fortunate that you chose that line of work. So let's talk here. I can just imagine the calls you've been receiving, particularly in the last week or so. So here we are, March 18th, and just even from Friday to today, it is astounding how much life has changed. So people are, I'm sure, feeling so anxious and confused, not just about the coronavirus, but also our state of living and our state of being. Everything is changing. Words like quarantine are heavy words, and curfew, it feels really restricting. And I know for the line of work that I'm in and talking with clients and companies, that now there's a lot of talk about job security and the economy, and then fear of getting sick and how long is this going to last. So, what what are you hearing, and where would be a good place for us to start this conversation?
There's so much that is going on, so much stress and changes. And you're right, these last, even just from a couple of days myself as my practice, at first I thought I was going to be in the office, and now I'm not. I'm doing teletherapy. And so, things changing kind of just overnight. Lots of, vacations planned, the job sort of uncertainty, even honestly being around other people, right? We're told to keep social distance, so you might need to go food shopping. The stores are kind of empty. That can feel scary. You don't want to touch anything. If someone's breathing too close to you, you might be looking around. There's just this sense of feeling unsafe. And we know that our nervous system in our body, which we all have because we're all humans, is set up to really look for whether something is safe or not safe. And, being honest, in the time that we're in right now, there's lots of things around us that just feel unsafe. So even where we might look at a neighbor and be smiling and want to connect and talk, or a coworker, or our boss, there's fear there because we're not sure, am I going to be told that I no longer have a position? Is this person going to give the coronavirus to me if I, stand next to them? Who's coughing and sneezing around me? Even in terms of our children, I've had many parents say, when they just breathe funny, I'm running over with a thermometer to check them. So that those reactions are going to add stress to our body, and our brain is going to be wondering, there's a lot of unknown here and uncertainty, and those are triggers for not feeling safe. So it's really important that I'm going to pause every so often in our talk and just say, even right now, let's just take a breath, because even just what we've talked about just right now is hard to hear.
Yeah.
So
It's so true.
and just that pause, even in this conversation, can help us just connect a little bit back to telling our brain, because the breath is the fastest way to help us regulate and tell our brain, like, it's okay, I got this. Just like you can rev up your brain with your breath by that kind of panting, hyperventilating sort of way when you're talking really fast. All of those things can send a message like things are not okay. So when we want to connect back to ourselves to say, like, okay, I got this. How can I listen to this podcast without
Right.
getting dysregulated? So every so often, I'm going to just say, let's just kind of take a breath and let that land for a moment.
Yeah, I even love that terminology. It's just let that land, let that sink in, breathe. It's just a moment. Okay, so now to the next moment. I've been talking a lot of language about the next right thing,
Mm-hmm.
and looking at things in terms of hour by hour, not even day by day, but hour by hour, and being conscious to the things that you have a great chair, your feet are on the ground, you're surrounded by abundance and positive things, any of those things to help ground and regulate. I think, like what you were saying before we started this conversation, I think that word regulate is so important. Which I'm just curious, which of the modalities are you finding? I said in your bio, you have a lot of experience in a lot of different things. Which modality are you finding you're having to draw from most often?
Um, I would say, although there's a part that people will often kind of lean into, cognitive behavioral, that really is a piece of this, which has to do with kind of like being aware of how I feel, maybe naming how I feel, changing my thought pattern. But the bigger part is really the attachment, because I need to connect with people. As humans, our primary way that we are being in this world is through connection. As mammals, that's how we come out. We need other to survive. And when we're disconnected, quarantined, socially isolated, those are threats to us that really help us not feel so safe. And that has to be looked at. So when I'm, say, talking with clients, even face to face through the, the teletherapy, it's really important that my eye contact to their eye contact through the screen is connected and engaged. Because those moments of feeling seen are going to help someone feel safe.
Mm. Thank goodness we have things like FaceTime and Zoom.
Yes.
uh, so
Yeah.
so let's start with obviously the coronavirus and what would help a parent when talking with their child about the virus? I'm thinking about how much is on social media that's really helping inform their experience. So
Yeah.
what would
So
help?
I'm finding, I'm finding maybe three different paths that parents tend to take. One is that they might say too much, give all this information. Children are hearing the news. Maybe, some families play the TV in their background a lot or have social, they have access to computers. And so they're constantly looking at things or talking about it on the phone or to their partner in their house. So there's too much. Then I have the opposite on the other side of the spectrum. If you think of this as like two lines, is not saying anything at all, or avoiding it, denying it, or saying it's an adult problem. We'll take care of that. We're here to protect you. And although parts of that are okay, it's really important that kids get some psychoeducation about what's going on. Because again, the brain feels threatened when there's incongruence. So if you tell me things are okay and the adults are figuring this out, but yet when I look at you, your body language is a little off and I see you, it's kind of like whispering and talking on the phone and the stores are empty. I'm not allowed to leave my house. That does not really make sense, even for a 5-year-old. There's going to be some incongruence there. And then the other end is where parents are, realizing like, okay, I need to say something, but I have no idea what to say. And so I feel confused and I'm just not sure. So getting the facts is important. When you have children that are early elementary school age, they just need really brief, simple information, appropriate reassurances, like, this is how we're keeping the family safe. This is how we're keeping us safe. We're distancing from people. We're home. We know our home is clean. We can talk to people through FaceTime. We can wave to people, say hi to them, but we just can't, be next to people and hang out with them.
Mm-hmm.
You wash your hands. This is how you stay healthy. You can use language like the adults are working really hard to keep you safe. And this is one of the ways that they found to help make this, make less people affected by this, right?
Okay.
Is by keeping our distance from people. So you want to give them some language around that. And the children that are early elementary age, so that would be like, even honestly, 4-year-olds, my 4-year-olds that I see, they have questions about it. They know the word better than some adults because
Right.
they've heard people talking. So there's energy around it. The middle, I'd say the upper elementary, so that's like 4th, 5th, middle school age, they're going to be a little more vocal about asking questions. And they're probably going to need some assistance as to like what's reality and what's rumor and what's maybe a fantasy from like a movie or something on a computer game that they played. So there's a little bit more of maybe curiosity to them. Like, what have you heard so far? What do you know about this? So even before I have talked to kids about this over the past 2 weeks, that's really how I approached it. What have you heard that's been going on? What do you know about how this is spread? Because there's been some interesting blaming of other countries or just different language around it that we just try to clear up. And just in general, in talking about viruses and how different viruses change and why this one is different from the flu or other viruses. And then upper middle school, high school students, really more in depth because they really are aware of what's going on in the world. I mean, they may have read things about what's happening in Italy and China. So that the depth of that can be really painful for them to know that these such sad things are happening everywhere, and now it's coming closer to home, and that feels scary. So as we take a breath
Yeah.
with that, we're going to name scary to our kids. And we're going to say, this feels scary. I feel scared too sometimes when I hear that. Of course, this is new for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what the World Organization is doing, or this is what we're doing in the United States. And this is how it's helping.
So I'm going to say back, make sure
Yeah.
that I got it, because I'm also thinking, I have a middle schooler, sixth
Yeah.
grader, and I have a high school, both daughters. And I'm thinking about it. So if I were having early grammar school, it's about being like appropriate with your language. Using words like safe makes a lot of sense to me,
Mm-hmm.
because they're very reliant upon adults. That
Yep.
helps inform their environment. And then when middle school, you're right, there's a lot of questions. My sixth grader is very in tune with what's going on out there. And I've been using words like, and I said this also to my 15-year-old, I think we're in prevention mode, which I think is really smart. And it's going to help contain this. And we have an opportunity to do that. Hopefully that's good parenting.
Yes.
But also
Yes.
asking a lot of questions. I think that's really smart, particularly for the middle school, is asking, what have you heard? What are you reading? And point them to facts rather than a lot of opinion and conjecture. And also a lot of the frenzy, because the frenzy in my mind is not helpful. I understand where people are coming from, but if I'm trying to regulate, going back to our word, if
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to regulate and stay calm and stay focused, I want facts. And I want also to get in discussion in a safe place. And, my high schooler is totally informed with everything. And, they're finding out probably quicker than we are, instantaneously. I do have a follow-on question for high schoolers, and this is also coming from some other parents I know that are having high schoolers that are exhibiting tremendous amount of irritability because they
Mm-hmm.
can't be with their friends and they're so socially grounded. And that all they have right now is things like Snapchat and the occasional FaceTime. But what advice or counsel do you have there to talk about that, at least to engage in dialogue? Because they're not exactly the most communicative group, but how would you propose some discussion there?
So, the other piece I forgot to add is that I'm also a mom. So I have two children, and I feel like that can give some frame of reference as to the experience in real time that I'm having with this also, as well as with the clients that I'm working with. And the biggest piece, because I happen to have a high schooler also, is to have conversation, and which can be hard because adolescents don't really want to have conversation with their parents. They just want to be with their friends. But in keeping them safe, that is even the language. My job is to keep you safe, and this is so hard. You love being with your friends. I would love for you to be with your friends. I want that for you. I don't want to keep you here. How can we make this work? What are some ideas that you have? Kids really do have, whether it's, adolescents, kids, I'll just use kids as that, as a kind of word that'll connect them all. They have a lot of great ideas. It may still come back to, well, I want to be with them. Okay, well, if that's not an option, what would the other options be? And maybe you can't think about it right now, and maybe this is too much of a conversation for us to have right now because it's too hostile. We'll come back and talk about it later. Um, there really isn't a change in terms of how do you connect through social distancing, right? You can't be together. So
Yeah.
the only other thing you can do is actually have like almost like projects that you're doing together, where it's kind of like, let's organize sending thank yous or letters, or make something and send it to the hospitals, to the doctors, or to the ER staff. Or let's figure out how we can send a box of something or donate something to the people in China or in Italy who are in this, state of quarantine. Um, Adolescents also really like to know that they can be helpful. I remember my first job was during 9/11. And then I was also working during Hurricane Sandy. And during those times, the support and outreach, how people came together, really helped you feel like you were taking action and doing something. And with this, we can't come together. So how can we come together differently that still feels like I'm taking action, I'm connecting with other, and I'm still doing?
I love that.
And possibly if you pose that to your child, typically if they're not in that reactive state of you're terrible, you don't understand me position, they will be open to saying like something or having an idea, or you know what, why don't you talk to your friends and come up with something? I would love to be able to help you figure this out. So let me know what you think.
It's like getting in service,
Yeah.
using your own ingenuity and creativity to do that. I love it. I'm also curious, is for anybody listening whose children already have anxiety or they have anxiety already, how do they handle it? What kind of advice or counsel can you offer there?
So it's really important how we model to our children, because from nervous system to nervous system, we can, through our mirror neurons, pick up how the other person is feeling. We can, we're learning and kind of taking snapshots like, oh, that's how you do anxiety, or, oh, that's how you handle and cope with things. So the one part is, that's why I guess we're talking about regulating. How are you working through the difficulties that you're having, and how would your child describe to someone else what they see? So if you were to ask your spouse or partner or a good friend, how do you think I'm handling this right now? If you were my child, what do you think my child would say about me, about the anxiety? Because that's going to give some information in terms of how much is yours in your child's anxiety and how much is actually the child's. So
Wow,
the
that's
example I
interesting.
gave you with the coughing and sneezing, and if every time my child does that, I turn around and get the thermometer, or I'm like, hey, are you okay? How many times did you sneeze? That's going to give them a sense of something's wrong. And their alarm is going to go off. Like, oh, am I okay? I don't know. Should I not be okay? So there's that. There's one, like parents connecting and figuring out, okay, I need to regulate. Maybe I need to name how I'm feeling to my partner or to a friend, or text it to somebody that I'm stressed, because we know naming it will help you decrease that stress. Maybe I need to take a really big breath when I hear them sneeze, to just like, okay, that was just a sneeze. And then looking at, where are the safe spaces, talking to your child about, this is our home, giving them some of that psychoeducational piece. And it's helpful for them to know, again, like, what's the reality of what's going on? And then how do we know that we're safe in here, or even outside, right? In nature, or you might be going to a park or just going for a walk, just to get out, if you can do that, that is super helpful to help you regulate. And then some great books if you have an anxious child. And what I did was I created a resource page on my website, so that anything I'm going to be talking about is going to be on that page.
Great.
So that parents don't have to scramble if they're driving, or listen to this again, or they could just go right to the website, and under resources, they'll see it. But there's a great book called What to Do When You Worry Too Much. And I love that book because in the beginning, the author talks about how you grow tomato plants, and how when you water tomato plants, it grows, the vine grows, tomatoes grow, and it just keeps growing and growing. And if you keep watering it, it's going to get bigger and bigger. And then you'll have tomato soup, tomato ice cream. And it's sort of this exaggerated way as to, you'll have this overabundance, right? Everywhere you look, there'll be tomatoes everywhere. And it connects to, that's how worry is. And if we keep feeding worry by thinking about how terrible things are in the world, how how hard this is, how I'm never going to figure this out, the way we're feeling is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So using story can be a really helpful way for kids to learn about how to kind of like conquer their worry, to be able to cope and come up with different ideas about how to handle worry. So that one book is a great place to get started if you felt like you needed to dive deeper because you're noticing that anxiety is getting bigger.
Wow,
And
that's
then a
great.
great book for parents is called Anxious Kids, Anxious Parents, and that's by Lynn Lyons. And it really helps parents to look at themselves in this situation. Maybe you need to tweak your language. Um, how can you encourage your child to be more independent? Maybe they're, you know, cooking at home now or doing things a little more independently that they weren't doing before that you were doing for them, because that will encourage them, like, you can do this. I feel good about you. I trust you. So they will then in turn, oh, I can handle this. I can handle things. And it transfers into I can handle worry. Um,
A lot of what you're talking about, how I'm translating it, I'm thinking we're just in such an extraordinary experience that we've all never ever been in before. And
mhm.
if I am someone who struggles with anxiety or my children do, what I'm hearing is you got to get in conversation about it, name it for yourself, talk about it, and try to create some sort of agreement, if you will, or conditions where you both can operate when you're being very restricted. So I think it's like getting in conversation. It sounds
Yes.
to be like is a key theme here. Is don't because I'm imagining if I were struggling with anxiety and now I'm forced to work from home. My family's all around me. I'm not used to that. They also have commitments of things that they have to do with remote learning. They're also managing their own anxieties, their own worries. But if we don't talk about it, we each are operating in silos and we may have our own reactions or overreactions or idiosyncrasies, and all we're doing is fueling something that could really get very big instead of just naming it and talking about what each other needs in this new condition.
Yes. Yes, that's a great way to put this together. The, you know, you're in a situation where we have no idea how long this will be. And although in like some of the communities around me, they have said 2 weeks, most of us have this sense that it's probably will be longer. And New York came out with, 8 weeks where school's going to be closed. So uh, thinking about day in and day out that we're going to be waking up and have some unknowns going on, you really do need to figure out how to talk about how you're feeling, what you can do to regulate through how you're feeling, because it's really not, it's actually not about being calm. Regulation is about how can I help this feeling not get bigger than me. So when the feeling is
Mm.
bigger than me, that means like I can't see myself in this. So that can be those moments that we've all had with our children where we might be like mad and yelling at them. And I don't even know what I'm saying. Words are just coming out, flying. And then after I'm like, oh, why did I do that?
Yeah.
That was terrible, right? So that's the feeling is bigger than me. And then there's the other where I withhold and actually check out and go into this flat space where I'm kind of like not with it. So that could be the excessive social media, excessive TV, not really talking, and just withdrawn. So the regulated places, whew, Sally, this is really hard for mommy to talk about. But I love you and we're going to figure this out. We have, our house is safe and we have all our family around. This is just so unknown and so different for us. I don't even know how to talk about this. Right. So
Mm.
here I'm kind of putting how I feel out there, but I'm not expecting Sally to fix it. I'm not expecting her to take care of me, but I am regulating myself by that and naming it. And actually, while I'm speaking with you, you can't see me, but I am moving my hands. So even just some subtle movement is going to help me move this energy that I'm having about, all of this. So whether it's anxiety or frustration or scared. Um, so
It's so interesting because what my brain immediately went to is like, well, I want to fix it. I want to make it go away. I want to make it get better. And I know everyone listening is thinking the same thing. And that's not what this is about. Regulating is about not letting it get bigger than yourself and just accepting and being okay with whatever it is. And then for those around you, how do I get in dialogue with them so that we can create an environment for all of us to be okay? And you're going back to that notion. I think it's like a day by day thing because every day is a different experience. The word is so powerful, rather than, oh, make me calm, they can make everything go away. And that's what everyone's in search of. And that
Yeah.
isn't realistic.
No, and that's why I really wanted to clear that up. Calm is not regulated. It's that there's a misunderstanding because I think there's some push about like we have to be calm, we have to be calm. We don't need to be calm. You can't be calm. This is a situation where you need to have some energy around this, but you can do it in a way where you can think, problem solve, figure things out. Because when you're dysregulated, it's very hard to figure things out. You're in a state of panic. You can't think clearly. You're saying or doing things that maybe you regret or that don't make sense for your business, as well as the opposite. You're withdrawn and just can't even function or move.
Mm.
So it's about building up to, through all these moments, to be regulating throughout the day. So whether it's a pause and look out the window, whether it's even right now taking a breath to see, have I been holding, my breath? Um,
Mm. What about some symptoms? So all the parents listening, wondering like, I wonder if my child has been exhibiting symptoms and I've missed them. So what should we be looking for?
so anything that seems where your child seems a little off, and parents really do have a good gut instinct about that, but maybe distracted because of their own stuff that's going on. So changes, maybe they're crying easily, more irritable. You talk about the adolescent, more withdrawn. Maybe they're not wanting to leave your side, want to sleep in your bed more, not shower by themselves. So you can have all of those extremes, like wanting to be with you too much and then kind of like pushing you away and lots of irritability or frustration. Um, and so those are things to know, like, yes, they're having an experience about this too. They're dysregulated. And we need to come up with some ways. Maybe I need to take this information that I'm hearing now and talk to them about this. And just talk to them about how our nervous system, we all have one and it's reacting to what's going on because this is scary and it's unknown. And so we have to take care of our bodies and come back together. And this is how we do that. And maybe there's other ways that you do that. And I think, we'll get to that in a little bit about what are some things that we can do while this is, all going on.
Yeah, let's switch gears right into that.
Okay.
So here we are, we're all home. We have this huge new world that we're living in inside
Mm-hmm.
of our homes. And we all want structure. I'm a huge structure person. It's like gives me comfort to know that there's some sort of routine and something predictable in each day. And kids are my oldest one's doing about probably 5 or 6 hours of work a day, but still has a lot of free time. And my younger one has more free time than that. She's doing a couple hours of work a day. But so what are you recommending in terms of structure, things that they could do, keep them busy? I know you also have a very strong belief in nature and how that plays into the whole psychological experience. So
Yes, and boosts our immune system. There's lots of research about that now. But yeah, so structure with flexibility. I'll say that because rigidity, right? It's not school. And the reality is you cannot create a school in your home. It's just not going to happen. So I think I'm saying that right away because I am finding sometimes parents like feeling very overwhelmed and upset that like it's not kind of flowing the way school was, but you don't need to have it that way. So the structure with flexibility would be how can you create like maybe for some of the younger children, they don't have to be on their laptop at a certain time because they're not doing live classes. Maybe they just have to be somewhere between like 9 and 11 or 9 and 1. They have to hop on for an hour or so. So within that time you can say like, okay, what kind of time could be time that we're doing at the table, that they're doing some work, And then maybe the next piece is this time that they can go outside and go play, or maybe you have space within your house, or maybe it's quiet time where they're reading a book or just sort of spending some time doing nothing. Because there's also that parents do not need to fill their child's day with endless activities, like a summer camp or something. Kids actually do really well if they have time to sit in their boredom. They will come up with creative ways to figure things out. We just have to allow that process to happen. But that's what your brain will do naturally. After so much of boredom, what I encourage parents to say is something like, if they're saying they're bored or there's nothing to do, I want to go on my laptop or I want my phone. This is really hard because a lot of the things around here you don't want to do. A lot of the projects, that are even fun. You don't feel like rainbow looming or whatever the big thing is now. And so you're bored. That's okay. You're really creative. And I'm sure at some point you'll kind of figure out what to do.
Yeah. Well,
and that's it.
I'm smiling because I have been annoying to my children about, you got to have this, you got to have that, you got to have routine, you got to have schedule. But what I'm doing, it's my anxiety that I'm pushing on them. Mm-hmm. But I love the structure with flexibility. It's the flexibility part that I think's been missing from my conversations with them. So that is so helpful. Okay. So you talked about some resources and things that are on your website, which I think is going to be really helpful for people to go to. Are there other current resources, books, things online that you could point people to that you're watching and monitoring yourself current day as a parent that you think would be really helpful given what's going on?
So I want to say a couple of things about some other things about helping kids. The one piece is to get outside in nature. And if you can't do that because of restrictions or where you are in the world, you can actually get similar, not exactly the same benefits in terms of on a brain level and your immune system, even by listening to nature sounds or by looking at nature pictures. So they've done research around how those things can be calming to our system and can help us get to a better place. So if you were to take a break during the day and you couldn't get outside, just looking outside for a few minutes and just kind of gazing at the leaves and the trees or listening to the bird sounds, those things can be really helpful to do.
That just calmed me down that you just said that.
Just, yeah, it's because we can all visualize that, right? So if you live by the beach or if you're 20 minutes away from the beach, just being able to get there and hear, and hear the waves can be really regulating to our system. So switching gears and thinking about what kinds of things, for your school age kids or for kids. So PBS has some great stuff for children to like videos or little articles that you can read and look at on how to help children. There's a lot of really, people are doing some wonderful things on social media in terms of free. So like if your child's art class is canceled or because they're not able to take art in school, there's people who are giving free demonstrations of how to draw certain things or use certain paints, where your child can be engaged in these creative outlets without having to leave their house. But you can take that and you can also take it with if you were to draw how you felt, what would that look like if you were to make that in lines and shapes? So how you felt about, what's going on being stuck in the house. The CDC, of course, has the most accurate, right, and updated information about what's going on. And I would also encourage to minimize social media, not check it as frequently. This situation with the virus that's going on is not something that you have to check like every hour. If you checked it a couple of times a day or even once a day or twice a day, by the next day, you would have accurate, updated information. It's not
Yeah.
something that's sweeping in where you have to different than when Hurricane Sandy was happening, right? And 9/11, those bigger events, you kind of needed to be connected because there was a lot happening.
Right.
This is, you can really kind of take a step back, because that's also something that will dysregulate you and put you in that state of panic if you're constantly listening to and reading about the virus and what's happening in other parts of the world. So that's a piece to look at. And, I think probably the last thing I would say is like looking at things that you're grateful for. What can you, I think, Jeannie, you had said something about you looking around where you are and saying, I'm grateful that.
Yeah. Feel your chair, feel the ground,
Yes.
feel the carpet, feel your pajamas, feel your clothes, notice your desk, notice your computer, what's on your desk, anything to get back into a state of mindfulness. I was actually reading in a yoga journal this morning. They have an article about mindfulness, about opening a piece of chocolate. Who would have thought you could build a mindfulness technique? But it was so important. What they were saying is like, what does it feel like in your fingers? What does it feel like when you're opening it up with the tinfoil? What's the scent? What's the shape of the chocolate? And then when you put it in your mouth, it's like a whole nother level. And the whole process might take 60 seconds rather than like opening it up while you're looking on your phone and popping it in your mouth. It's just taking a moment. And I guess to everything you're talking about, when you think about regulation, it's slowing it down, creating some consciousness to it, and recognizing that there's other things I could do to interrupt this so that it doesn't feel so big.
Right. Because we usually get swept up from our emotional lower part of the brain, and that takes over, and we kind of don't have access so much to the thinking and problem solving part of the brain. And so if the two parts we can keep together and keep integrated and keep talking, it's going to help you be able to think clearly and plan and still feel your feelings, but to be able to figure things out in a way that makes sense, in a way that feels good.
Right. So, wow, what a fantastic conversation, Rose. I have learned so much. And if people want to know more about you, your practice, what's the best way for them to reach out?
So my website is the easiest. It's www.rose, R-O-S-E, LaPiere, LAPIERE.com. They can check me out there. I also have a Facebook page that they could follow and like. And I have I'm posting tons of things for families, and even just current things that I'm finding from New Jersey unemployment, or things that are all related to what's happening right now, and how parents can get access to services, and so keeping families connected to resources and how they can help themselves, and even in terms of maybe with work, or having this time of financial stress that's possibly going on for people as well.
I'll share your website on the communication for this podcast. I also have a Facebook group. I can connect my group to your group so that we'll have more access there. And please keep doing this really important, wonderful work. You're helping so many people. And maybe we'll circle back for a follow-up conversation when this is all past, what we've learned and how we can carry this forward in our lives. So thank you so much again, Rose, for spending the time today. Thanks to everybody for listening to another episode of Warriors at Work and letting us be a part of your warrior journey. You can ask questions and make suggestions for future topics at jc@jeanniecoomber.com. Connect with me personally on LinkedIn and Instagram, and join us on the Warrior Conversations channel on YouTube and at the Warrior Magic Community page on Facebook. You can find links to all these places on my website, jeanniecoomber.com. And most importantly, be sure to tell friends About us, subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes, Spreaker, and Spotify. It helps others find the show and puts more warrior magic out into the world.